Welcome to the Self Within podcast, where we will look to ancient traditions and modern insights to seek guidance, knowledge, and practical tools to help us reconnect with our true selves. Join me, your host, as we explore various topics from mindfulness and meditation to energy healing, astrology, and much more. We'll hear from experts and everyday individuals to explore the connections that exist between mind, body, and spirit, and how we can use them for personal growth. Hi, everyone. So today I am really excited because we are going to be talking about quantum jumping. And this is a topic that I have been thinking about for quite some time. I've learned about it. I've heard others in my circle talk about it. And for those of you that don't know, it is about upgrading to this next version of yourself, version 2.0, if you will. And when I first heard about this, my biggest questions were around, okay, what is it really? How does it work? Like, how do I do it? Because inevitably, I think we are all on a path to upgrade ourselves. We don't necessarily know where we want to go or maybe what that looks like, but I think there is this intrinsic desire of, I know that I'm here and there's a better me, and how do I get there? So quantum jumping can allow us to do that. And so today we are going to be talking with my guest, Axél Carrasquillo. He is shaman and founder of the Antojai Ascension Academy. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you for joining us, Axél.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be really fun.
Yes, yes. I see your videos all the time, and you talk a lot about quantum jumping, quantum shifting, quantum leaping, right? I think all these terms that are associated with this essentially jump. And before we get into that, because I know that's where all the juicy parts are, I really want to take it a step back and really just break it down further for the audience, which is what is quantum? Because I do get this question often, especially when I'm working with clients. And I think once we start getting into quantum physics, that can get so complex and complicated. But I know you have such a nice way of breaking things down. So I'd love to hear your perspective of let's just take this one word and what is quantum?
If you look up the definition, it pretty much sums down to like the most minute portions of reality that have a different level of physics than we're accustomed to, essentially. If you want to be more practical with the explanation of quantum, quantum is your imagination, is the best way I would boil it down to. Your imagination allows you to create new identities within yourself. When you create new identities within yourself, you start behaving and manifesting different things. So, what is the fundamental fabric of all reality is our mind, right? And our mind can only create new solutions when our imagination is flexible. And that's when people say they're bending the quantum field. My imagination is flexible, pretty much. When they say, oh, I'm bending reality, I'm bending my perception of reality with my imagination. And then that's kind of like the same concept that you play in a lot of different modalities, whether it's energy healing, psychic abilities, stuff like that. The more lucid you are, or the more ability you have to trust your imagination, because that's what also, like, sometimes people say lucidity is being able to say, like, I'm recognizing that everything that's in front of me is my imagination, and that it can respond if I give it like consciousness. If I give reality around me consciousness, it will respond to me in a different way than if I didn't acknowledge that within it. So that when you live from that space, that's lucidity. It gives you more real estate with your imagination to bend the quantum field, or bend your own perception of reality, your own imagination, when it comes to constructing reality. Now, the problem with like saying quantum whatever versus just your imagination is that people can't accept things to be easy. That's just like the human nature. Like, we always want to complicate things more.
Right.
So if I were to just tell somebody it's just your imagination, they're gonna be like, yeah, okay, then why hasn't my life been better since this whole entire time? But there's a specific way you have to use your imagination to then work in harmony with the laws of reality, and then things will manifest faster with you. So shamans learn how to live a lifestyle that's in harmony with what people consider the law of attraction, manifestation, bending the quantum field, whatever. And then it's like you're not even manifesting anymore because you just know, if I put my thoughts here, then this has to happen by default. And if I feel this certain way, then another thing is going to happen by default. And everything becomes like cause and effect. And you get to choose, as a creator of your reality, how complex or how simple you want to create anything at any given moment.
Mm.
Hopefully, it's like a simple example.
Yeah, it is. It is a simple example. And I think what you just talked about, the fact that as humans, we want to overcomplicate. And I think there's an element of wanting this science, wanting these hard facts. It's like, if I don't see it, I don't believe it. If I can't read it, if it hasn't been proven in some way, then it's not real. And I think that's kind of the double-edged sword of, we classify things as quantum because you can Google it. It's in a textbook, right? There's some sort of like physics behind it. And then the other part of it, which still exists and it still makes up what quantum is the more unbelievable part. So thank you for explaining it in that way, because I think it's important for us to really try to trust that there is this unknown that we need to go into. And once we do that, and once we can, as you say, like accept that imagination of everything that is around us, and we either make it hard or easy for ourselves, things can begin to manifest, things can begin to happen to us.
Yeah. So, okay. Coming back to what you were talking about, like when it comes to the science is really helpful. I'm not gonna lie to you. But when you dive into the science, you end up realizing like what is reality anyway. So your DNA doesn't recognize time and space. If I take a vial of your blood, go to the other side of the world, and then do something, have you focus on love, right? And here and alive, your vial of blood on the other side of the planet is going to register the same emotion running through it as though it were still inside of your body. So your body doesn't recognize time and space. And then when we start thinking about the fourth dimension is time. Time bends based off of our perception. And then now we're starting to find out that like time bends based off of our physiology. So like the faster your metabolism, the slower time goes. The slower your metabolism, the faster time goes. And then that's why like when you have certain emotional chemicals that get released in the mind, time will seem like it passed by so quickly when you're having really great time with your friends versus going really slow when you're at a meeting that you don't want to be a part of. So if your mind is dictating how time is being constructed at any given moment, what is time? It's just not really there until you decide to incorporate it into a creation. And then there's all these crazy things where you start thinking about your cells, right? You have billions of cells in your body. Each one of your cells have organelles or organs, pretty much. So as above, so below. Like you start shrinking things down, and they still have a mimicry of what's at a greater scale. When you start looking at your cells, they're made up of trillions of atoms. Atoms are in two places at once, constantly facing back and forth. So without you realizing now, you're in two places at once. You're just not fully aware of that because you're focused on this particular reality. At the center of each one of your atoms are quarks. Quarks are phasing in and out of reality. So your atoms are in two places at once inside of reality, and then your quarks are in and out of reality constantly. So what where are we exactly? You go even deeper, you're like, okay, like reality is 99.99% empty space. All the matter in reality can fit inside of a sugar cube. What is reality other than your imagination? And then when you start like using that information, you go backwards and you look at like the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Hopi. They all kind of knew this. They just had a different way to describe the same thing. So a lot of them would have said like the dream, the illusion, the Maya, talking to the gods even. And then depending on the kind of shamanism you get into, or maybe even like energy work, right? Like just like your belief of the cosmos itself, because that's what shamanism is. It's like how you believe reality responds to you and living a lifestyle in harmony with that. If you believe that, okay, I talk to the gods and the gods respond to me and they always grant me whatever I ask because I'm friends with them, you're taking the dream and just molding it into that particular form to give you the same result as somebody who's saying, I really believe in the law of attraction. I believe in journaling, and every time I write it in this one journal, it comes to pass in the next coming days. The magic is fundamentally the same. It's just whether or not one perception is more empowering than another. And like really strong shamans or people who understand quantum whatever after some while, they don't even call it manifestation or law of attraction. They just do it, right? Whatever medium it manifests as is whatever was required to get it done.
Right. It's like we're giving certain things more weight than others. And I think once we start to do that, there is a firmer belief that it is going to work. And that in and of itself, like in our mind, we can then, I want to say, hold on to it. Like it feels real, right? I think always going back to we need hard facts. But one of the things you were saying earlier on, you mentioned parallel realities. And it's funny because just quick short story here. I had been hearing about that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, for quite some time. I forgot when it came out, but a lot of people kept telling me, you need to watch this movie. You're really gonna like it. It resonates with a lot of the things that you talk about. So, anyways, just recently I was on a trip and it was one of the movies on the airplane. And I love watching movies on the airplane. So I'm like, okay, this is my chance. I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch this movie. And I loved it. And that movie really was this spark of like, let's have this talk here today. Because so much of this quantum leaping and the upgrading of yourself and the fact that we essentially have all of those strengths and tools and gifts that we're craving in this lifetime, we have it in a future version of ourselves. And so that's what I like about this movie is she's trying to figure out like how can I tap into, me as a karate fighter or whatever it was that she was doing, right? And that's hence the parallel reality. I come back to that question. What are parallel realities?
Yeah, so that's really advanced, but I like to think about it a lot because it shows you how easy it is to actually shift things. Parallel realities are every other decision that you chose not to stick to, pretty much. So, like, if right now I decided that I wanted to be on this podcast, right, talking to you, there are versions of me that went to go do office work, went to the grocery store, decided to go to sleep, whatever, they still have to exist because of like infinity in a lot of different forms of esoterica, there's like a constant reference of like this oneness that wants to experience as many different realities or possibilities as it can. And it creates that within its own imagination, which then it plays out every possible option of any situation ever, over and over and over. And then any small detail can modify along the way. They say we have universe A and the whole entire universe, you're wearing pink throughout the whole entire thing. Well, now it's going to want to try to see what it's like to do the whole entire universe in blue, but also then it's going to want to see what it's like to switch blue and pink every other day. And it's going to continue to create more algorithms that way to figure out what the meaning of a particular situation can be. And it can sound really daunting, but it's almost like AI. AI kind of does the same thing. It kind of like runs a bunch of different algorithms, tests out a bunch of different formulas to come down to the quickest answer possible. So that's kind of like what parallel realities are. Now, that's explaining it really complexly. A lot of times people are just thinking about, hey, I want to be the version of myself that is a multimillionaire or something like that, right? And then they start trying to imagine or visualize themselves in that reality, which is helpful because it starts like aligning you with the vibration. Fundamentally, like quantum anything comes down to vibration. The version of you that vibrates, the version of you that's a millionaire is vibrating at a very specific speed. And how do we determine what that vibration is? Well, their habits, the way they look at the world, the way they believe about themselves, the people that they're surrounding themselves with, whether or not they choose to listen to their intuition when it tells them to turn left versus right. All those little minute things that the multimillionaire version of you is doing is the tuning to the vibration that puts you in that reality. Now, that might seem like really daunting, but it's more so just intuitive, right? If you want to think about it logically, it does seem like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you can go over a bunch of different alphabet sequences over and over and over again, right? 99% of people that manifest what they want, they start visualizing the version of themselves that they want to be. That version of them gives them some sort of response, like you need to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I'm going to start waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and we'll see where that goes. And then when you notice that you wake up at that time, suddenly around 6 o'clock, inspiration hits you and you just feel like you got to write a blog about, I don't know, dieting or something. Decide to write that. That's your first blog. Something tells you post it on Medium. You go on Medium, you post it. It becomes a viral hit. Now you're walking into the reality of you wanting to make an influence with your voice, right? So then you start kind of seeing like synchronicity. It seems magical, but ultimately it's just you talking to yourself from the quantum field. If you are the quantum field, that means the quantum field has every answer physically possible. You just have to become aware that the quantum field can make it that easy for you, which by default, if you think that way, you live that way, you've automatically changed your vibration. Some people seem lucky because they just know how to work with the laws of the universe. And then they stick to that. And that's why the universe always seems to be like making them find the right opportunity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by changing your perception on how reality responds to you, you've changed your vibration, which then makes it easier for you to then step into the millionaire, the writer, the mom, whatever it is that you really want to be embodying. But you also have to understand that you cannot be the same person while wanting to change the quantum field. A lot of times people are like, I don't want to change my habits. I don't want to have to do anything to acquire X, Y, and Z. And like, there are alternate realities, yes, that are saying you can get those things without having to do anything. But 90% of the time, in order for you to literally be stationary and have something come to you need to put in a lot of energy. So it's a lot of meditation. It's out of like personal energy recognition. It's a lot about bending your own perception that you don't have to travel through space and time for something to come to you. There's a lot of different things that come into the equation when we're talking about how to bend the quantum field. And a lot of it just comes back down to like imagination. Like all this explanation is helpful to give you ideas on how to use your own imagination to create the best solution for you, pretty much. Because the universe says infinity. So that means anything goes. It's just whether or not it's authentically embodied. Embodied means you're retaining that frequency actually in the body. Your body's vibrating that thing. And what I've been teaching my students lately is if you think about it as if you've ever seen those cymatic plates where they're like this metal plate and it's vibrating a certain sound and they drop like sand on it and you can see like these geometric patterns surface from the sand. Well, your body is a cymatic plate. Your thoughts and emotions are the vibration running through the cymatic plate. And then reality or matter around you starts creating these geometric fields like the sand does on the sound plate. And then that becomes your reality. Your reality is literally a geometric representation of the vibrations that you're embodying or vibrating through the cellular network. And then that's the quantum field, you know? So there's so many different ways that you could do it. It's just what's easier. A lot of people sometimes don't really believe in their body and they think that their body's just a mechanical thing. So for them, it's going to be more difficult to manifest through the body versus me. I originally was really good at manifesting through surrender. Like I would just give to the cosmos and let it happen. But if you're somebody who manifests too much from surrender, chaos just randomly comes out of nowhere. And like there always seems to be like something pulling you in an opposite direction. You're never really fully satisfied with your creation. If you manifest way too rigidly, where you're like, I have to have it X, Y, and Z fashion, you can have it, but it's going to take longer and you have to have more precision with those types of creations. So then if you try to be in the middle, that's helpful. Or you can even take like an advanced route, which is like, I am the creator of my own reality. And then architecting like a very particular picture. If you want to be the ultimate podcaster, every meditation you do, every vocalization, every move, everything is constantly bringing you to the chosen reality of being the ultimate podcaster. And then you have to commit to that. By doing that, it's like a knife cutting through reality and you get to your objective much faster because there is no resistance between you and the embodiment. But most people won't take that route because it requires a lot of like self-discipline.
Mm. There was one thing that you talked about, and even with the commitment piece, um, you have to do things, right? There are certain things that are uncomfortable, and that's essentially why we're not doing them right now, right? Because they're hard, they're difficult. We don't want to go there. We don't want to be the person that wakes up at 6 because we know we like to sleep until 9 or whatever the case is. And it's funny because in the movie, they actually show this in a really like strange and kind of funny, outlandish way with, I think one person ate like a chapstick or something, right? It's like you would never do that in real life, but it almost showed the extent of you have to do that thing that is terrible. You don't like it. You know it's going to taste gross, but it elevates you to that next level. And then there's the commitment and dedication piece, which it's not just a one-time thing. It's like takes consistency to wake up at 6 a.m. or whatever it is. Um, so yeah, I wanted to just highlight that because I think that's important along this entire process of quantum jumping, manifestation, that there is a level of dedication that is required as much as you can have the desire to want to do it. It still takes you being in the driver's seat and saying, I am going to make this, it could be a small thing, but a small change to allow me to get to point B or wherever it is that they want to go.
What I really liked about that movie was like towards the end, it showed you how they were existing at the same moment in a bunch of different realities at the same exact time. And it just very in alignment with what I was talking about, like the quantum universes. But I also loved how at the very end she comes out and she starts talking about love. And like love was like the super weapon that got her through like the mega boss and stuff like that, which in a way, like even love in that movie towards the end is only a perception within the quantum field that could have served her to get to the end anyway. You could have been super authentic. You could have been
Mm.
in bliss, right? Whatever it was, right? There's so many Hindu deities that have achieved the end path of that movie, but through very specific vibrations that's unique to them. Is the same thing that happens with people. Like sometimes people see, oh, someone became super successful or famous through this particular methodology, and they try it and it doesn't work for them because it's not in alignment with your vibration. So that's why you have to like experiment with a lot of different like manifestation techniques and keep like a journal of like, I did this particular spell, it worked, or I did this spell and it didn't work, or how long did it take for it to work, right? And then you start figuring out after, a couple weeks of practice even that, oh, whenever you do like fire-based spells, they respond like in just a couple of days versus waters, those are like a couple weeks out. And then you can start calibrating your own magic, which is essentially you just fine-tuning yourself to the quantum field so that you can collapse reality more quickly. And the thing is, a lot of times, I explain it through science, I explain it through alchemy, through spell work, through meditation, because all of these ways can just literally get you to the end point. It's just how lucid are you? Like, how much are you willing to bend reality to defy yourself? Because, like, we're programmed with societal norms, like what people believe about us, what they believe about themselves, what we were surrounded in ecosystems where they show us what certain potentials for certain kind of people are. You have to choose to like recognize that that's all an ego-based illusion that is going to limit the amount of lucidity, the amount of movement you can create with your imagination so that the quantum field actually serves you. Society itself is designed to make you believe that the quantum field is unattainable, that it's difficult to actually manipulate, and that it's only for the specific very few who are lucky. Even when you start thinking about like, oh, these star seeds, earth angels, whatever other categories they come up with, they almost use them in a way without, it's human nature. Like those categories are used in a way to separate the divinity that everyone inherently has. Like everyone inherently is a starseed. We've all come from like some incarnation, a past life or the next life that we're going to have, because time and space is irrelevant at that point. We've been on an alien planet with an alien civilization and we've learned how to live that life. Okay, cool. We've all lived in ancient Egypt at some point. So it doesn't really matter these labels that are trying to separate and create more confusion, because ultimately it's the oneness that always says, I'm choosing to create a dream that chooses this form, which is starseed, earth angel, whatever. And then if you study like ancient Egyptian alchemy, the powers of the pharaohs, one of them was called Sekhem, which is tied to the goddess Sekhmet of healing and war. Sekhem is form or thought form. When you change your perception or you change the Sekhem of something, reality's chemistry, the atoms in reality, or Atum, which is like the great creator in ancient Egyptian magic, will respond to your liking. So you have to be able to witness yourself know that reality is an illusion, and then the gods shall respond to you because you are not disconnected from the gods, according to the ancient Egyptians. So there's a bunch of different pantheons that kind of explain the same thing. And it's cool when you see like the connecting dot, because then that's when you start really like you almost stop believing. I don't know how to explain this, like in life. I believe in life, but I don't believe in life. Like life is beyond what I'm actually physically experiencing. And that's the life that I want to be living, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Okay. It's sinking in. It's sinking in, but I get what you're talking about. So maybe getting into the practicality of like, how can we quantum jump? And I know we've talked a lot about what you're imagining, your mindset, things like that. But do you have like quick tips or something?
Yeah, for sure. Like fastest way to do it is recognize your body has awareness. Like each one of your cells is a miniature version of you. So if you really want to understand what a multidimensional being is, you are multidimensional by just looking at your body because there's miniature versions of you already constructing you. So that's the first thing I tell people to recognize that they're helping you create reality. And then I push it a little bit further because I had this dawning when I was doing ayahuasca last year in Peru, and it was like I was really in tune with my body, and my cells were like, you're the culmination of our decisions. So like whatever I believe I need to do is because they've all collectively come down to that conclusion, given me the like synthesized end result, and then I react on it thinking it's my divine inspiration that's coming up with the end result, right? And it showed me like you're so ignorant. You don't even know anything that's around, like what's actually happening with your body. So what I invite people to do is, first of all, just literally take a deep breath, do it with us. And then as you take that deep breath, relax and just put your mind on the fact that you are a multidimensional being because of your cells. And then you just relax into it. You're going to feel like a sudden shift in your energy. It can be like very subtle, where you just feel relaxed suddenly, or maybe you see a color, you start thinking about specific memories. The room can even get quieter. Energy work is so different for each person. So there's like an instantaneous subtle thing. And then all you have to do is be like, I'm so grateful that my cells know how to manifest for me. And just have that energy, hold it. Feel gratitude that each one of your cells knows how to manifest for you. And as you do it, you're going to suddenly just feel like the energy start to build. And the more you repeat it, the more you feel comfortable with it, the more you integrate it or embody it, then you're naturally bending the quantum field by default.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I love
That's
that.
like a super quick one.
You know, I remembered as we were doing that, I remembered what it was that I wanted to ask before, which is the authenticity part that you were talking about, how a lot of times people will take love. We've talked about the emotion or the feeling of love, but that might not be authentically the vibe or the resonance that fits you, right? It could be the resonance of happiness or joy or whatever it is, right? There's all these different vibrations, I guess. And so I hadn't thought about that before, what you were saying, which is like play around with the vibration that sticks to you. Because just because someone else got it through fill in the blank XYZ vibration doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fit you. And so I like this idea of play around with it, test it out. It's not a one size fits all type of thing.
hmm Yeah, and when you talk about that, it reminds me of like the concept of dharma or like soul purpose, if you don't know what dharma means. But when you study Buddhism, they say like dharma doesn't exist. Like it's whatever, it's a figment of your imagination. You chose to give yourself a purpose so that you could exist under that purpose. And then when you fulfill your own dharma, you kind of come out of it like, okay, that was an illusion. And you can fulfill your dharma within your lifetime. Like I fulfilled my dharma the first time when I was like 27 or something like that. And it was such a weird experience because I didn't have like momentum with reality. So like a lot of times when people are thinking about like, okay, what is my purpose? your purpose is always linked to that fundamental like essence that you were just describing, where it could be bliss, right? What has been the thing that has driven you your entire life, consciously and unconsciously, forever? Like for me, I can tell you it's always been power and freedom. Like I've always wanted to understand, how do you become more powerful? How can you bend reality? What does power actually means? Like where are the limits of power within this reality? While also saying like, how do I use this power to make my life easier? How do I use this power to like open my mind to something, my physiology to something, right? So since that's been always my drive, that's always been associated to my dharma, my sole purpose. My sole purpose is to empower people and free them from the matrix. Like quite literally, is like once you understand how integral that vibration is to everything that you do, it just makes sense. Like you don't even have to be looking for your dharma. You already knew inherently what you were supposed to do here. Some people feel like their sole purpose has to be something like massive, right? Like it has to be like changing cancer or something, right? For some people, yes, absolutely. Like it is going to be that path, but you also understand like the bigger the dharmic role, the more resistance there is. So like a lot of times people are like, I want to have a dharma that's like super amazing. Like I colonize Mars or some shit. But think about all the resistance that is required to surpass that and become that, right? Like, requiring the money, the right people, being able to talk well, like whatever it is that's required to actually get that is going to be much more greater than if your impact is just to simply find internal bliss. A lot of times people think, oh, I can't change the world because I internally found my bliss. Yeah, you can. You radiate that in every action that you do. So then people are going to naturally gravitate to you that are also blissful. You'll eventually create a community of blissful people. And then the more people that come together, the more the ecosystem globally will change in terms of the vortex and the sacred geometry and the ley lines and everything else is connected. So your path can be as simple as making a community that is authentically anchored in love or in change, or just working on yourself and being a monk. Like there's so many yogis that isolate themselves to a cave, don't want to mess with anyone, but they know that them being in a cave is still making a huge impact to people who will never physically meet them. So it's really interesting when you simplify it from that angle and you stop expanding. I think one of the things in like the law of attraction or like energy work with light workers, expand, 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 expand. Expansion is adding space. And sometimes you don't need more space. You need to harness. So you need to contract and you need to work within. So you have to allow yourself to kind of be like a slinky. I think about it a lot of times. Like you can stretch it and then bring it back together, because that is how the universe works. It expands and contracts, expands and contracts. Most people are just focused on the expansion, which ultimately will lead you to illusion because you never actually learn what's at the core of something. And everyone's expanding, trying to find sole purpose. But you need to contract and be like, what has been the common theme? What has been the one thing that's been integral to everything that I've ever done in my life? Then from there, you will truly understand what Dharma means. And then that's the quantum field bending to your favor, essentially.
Yes, yes, I love that so much because it's so simple. And I think that's the thing, is that going back to overcomplicating things, right? It is the simplest thing. And I think when, as humans, if we find that our dharma or our vibration is too simple, it's almost like it's not enough. It doesn't matter. But, and then comparison comes in, right? Like, but she's, or but he, but they, but, and it's not about the other person or the others. It's like what feels right for you. And I think once you start to tap into that vibration for yourself, the simpler, the better, you find that other doors start to open that just make sense for you. And that can then that expands in a different way. It's not necessarily expanding yourself, but you're expanding out is kind of how I'm envisioning it. And then you're quantum jumping. I mean, then we get back to essentially what we're talking about here, right? It's like you tap into that vibration and then you are upgrading yourself to your next level because synchronicities happen, doors open, people walk into your life that you needed to, right? And it's just like things just start to make sense. And even the difficult things that we talked about earlier, like, waking up early or leaving a job or whatever, even though it may be difficult, I think in your gut, there's this strong pull that feels like it's right, and that's when you make it. That's when you do the thing that you were scared of because you're like, well, it's now or never, right? Um, yeah, that was like
Yeah.
what was coming to me, and I was like, oh, the simplicity of it was so beautiful.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate it. I've been practicing for a long time. But yeah, no, coming back to what you just said right now, like to be 100% honest, I've been a shaman my entire life, and I can't say it gets easier per se in the way that like people conventionally think of easy, because really what happens is like, for instance, quantum, look, before I even go there, right? Quantum jumping is when you jump your consciousness from one reality into the other. So in order for you to do that, you need to change the vibration of your consciousness, which then allows you to experience different physics in an alternate version of Earth where you're inhabiting. So literally your consciousness jumps. When you're doing quantum shifting, you are in a like a superposition, kind of like in the movie Everything Everywhere all at Once, right? The superposition allows then reality to shift around you to create the illusions that you're looking for. I know there's a bunch of other ones. There's quantum jumping, quantum shifting, quantum leaping. Quantum leaping is when you've jumped your consciousness a ton of different tabs. So like instead of just jumping one tab over, you jump like 10 tabs over.
Mm.
And when the leaping is much more difficult because it requires you to adapt much more faster because you're jumping so many other frames, it can be really beneficial if you can sustain that vibration when you jump to the other side. Otherwise, things start to crumble and you start moving backwards. The thing people think about when it comes to like doing any of these manipulations is that you only go forward in the direction that you want, but in fact, you can move forward 10 frames and then come back 10 frames or even 11 frames over. And then it kind of like forces you to be in this cycle of like, why can't I transcend myself to get this manifestation, etc. So coming back to like what I was explaining earlier, like for me, I've had to learn, you know, a lot of it comes down to my clarity with myself. Like I can quantum jump more easily and faster when I know exactly what I want. If I say, oh yeah, I want the house and I want a dog and I want this and I want that, and I just hodgepodge a bunch of things together like on Pinterest, then like, all right, I'm gonna get it, some of it, and some of it might take forever to come through. But if I say, okay, like my thing is I want to create a $3 million business that helps people all over the world educate themselves on their bodies, right? And you have like that consistent idea open, and then you allow yourself to kind of just like form into whatever that particular frequency is. Along the way, what you end up realizing is like, why are you not letting yourself have the thing? A
Mm.
lot of times it's not like you can't have it. It's just there's a narrative inside of you that is anchoring the creation that you must struggle to attain said thing. And a lot of times for me, it's been like, okay, well, where does this come from? And being brutally, the most difficult times has been being brutally honest with myself and recognizing this is coming because my inner child was four and felt lack of love from their father. And this is now manifested into this bigger monster of a creation that is now not letting me move forward. And I then have to even take it one step further and be like, I can't blame this particular file in my consciousness because then I'm blaming my inner child, and all I'm going to be doing is causing myself more harm. I'm no better than my father if I don't accept that this is how the inner child feels. And I'm going to work with what is being presented to me to help the inner child ascend within its own consciousness. And once I've done that, then I see like the barrier, the blockage that was in front of me dissipates, it dissolves, and suddenly I get to the next step. A lot of times, too, I've had to let go of what I believe I want. So sometimes you say you do want the house or the dog and all these other things, but really what you want is to live in private on the edge of a beach with no one ever knowing where you live, completely off grid. Maybe that's a totally idealistic difference from you. Your ego is telling you you want the house, the mansion, right? But your soul is telling you I want the beach just off grid. So then if you're following Dharma, right? Dharma would be like soul purpose, and you're just following the vibration by default, you're going to end up at the beach anyway with that house in some way, shape, or form. Versus if you follow ego, your ego will help you bend the quantum field into the mansion with the dog and the yacht and whatever. And you're going to find yourself in that alternate reality, that parallel universe, unhappy, questioning why it is that you have all these things and you do not have the one thing that means the most to you, which is personal fulfillment, personal success, personal happiness. Once you're in that alternate reality of ego, it can force you to then, okay, now I need to really answer to myself, who am I? Where am I? Where am I going? What do I actually want out of life? And then you can eventually switch all the way back to the original path of Dharma, and you will still get the house with the beach, but it'll be much longer. It'll be later. It might not be the exact house you had dreamt about, but it's still possible. And then there's still so many other manipulations in between that you could do where you decide not to pursue yourself in ego reality, and then you just go deeper and you die with resentment, or you decide to go after your dharma and you complete your dharma in dharma reality, and now you have to figure out what the next thing you want to do is creation, right? In terms of creation. So you have to understand there's no definitive answer to the manipulations of reality because they are infinite. The quantum field is never going to say no to you. And then a lot of times people try to separate the idea of quantum field with like law of attraction, manifestation, even God, right? Like if you were to say like the cosmos or God is granting you something, how do they grant it to you? By manifesting it for you. How do they manifest that thing for you? Because you communicated, this is what I want to be in resonance with, or this is what I want vocally through the law of attraction. So then that comes through. And then like you have to understand that there's no separation, right? Between you and the end result other than your lack of wholeness. The ancient Egyptians have this like saying that was you can't give God anything because God has everything. Like you can't literally give him anything because he can create it. He's already experienced it before you have everything with any situation. To be in a godlike state is to be whole and be able to acknowledge and take full responsibility for the emotions that you're carrying internally that are then creating the illusions externally that you don't want to be experiencing. And 99% of people cannot accept the fact that they're the creator of their own reality, which means some of the shitty things that are happening to them in real time are because of unresolved emotions, perceptions, beliefs, and even frequencies that they are embodying in real time. And that's where the true journey to enlightenment comes, is being able to do that on a regular basis and then be cool with it. Like it's hard for me sometimes to still be able to look at myself and be like, this whole shit show is my creation, and accepting it wholeheartedly and moving past it. You know what I mean? Loving it even and being like, okay, like this isn't a bad thing. This is teaching me something about myself. Was it teaching me about why I created this in particular? And then sometimes it forces me to look at really hard truths, and then I have to make the decision, do I want to change? Or do I want to modify in a way that still enables me to be in a toxic vibration that creates more of these illusions that I don't technically want to be participating with, but I don't want to change, you know?
Wow. There were so many thoughts that came up for me, and a lot of what you just said I resonated with because, I mean, as I was telling you, even before we started the podcast and we started talking, like there are some things going on for me personally, and it's exactly what you said. It's like, how did I create this reality that I'm in right now? And it took me a while to figure it out because it's a lot easier to blame the other person, to say, well, it was on them, like it was their fault. I'm an innocent bystander, and maybe, but there was a role that you played, whether unconsciously or not, and now you're in it. And I had to truly face the fact that, okay, it's going to be difficult. It will be a challenge, but it is a learning opportunity, and I have to figure out how to move past it. And I've been really working with what is this new vibration of myself? Because the old me would have like sunk into it, would have gotten depressed, would have been like, oh, poor me, like, why is this happening? Right. And I'm like, no, I can't get there because that's not the version of me that I want to live. The version of me is gonna move past it, is gonna know that there is something better that is going to come. And that has been so hard because there's a part of me that's like, really? Do you really believe that? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm gonna go with it. Like, I'm gonna stick with that version. Um, so I'll tell you how it goes. So far, so good, right? So I love that you bring that topic up because I think from what I was just hearing from what you were saying, quantum jumping can also bring you back, right? These 10 steps back. And I think oftentimes we're thinking, how do we move forward? I don't want to go back. No one wants to go back. But when you move forward, when you start to encounter this barrier, which is essentially an old story, a limiting belief, etc., either you push past, which is going to be the difficult part of it, or you get pushed backwards. And when you get pushed backwards, that's when you start to question, does this really work? Who am I really? Like, you kind of get down on yourself in a way. So it's interesting that there is a level of quantum jumping, which I hadn't considered before, that can bring you back to maybe bring you forward in the future, but you need that greater level of awareness to get there. And I think that it depends where you are on your journey, essentially, and how long that will take, as you said.
Yeah, no, I love that you bring that up. Because number one, you never know what someone's journey is. I think that's what's learning how to quantum bend has taught me the most. Like, yeah, some people seem luckier than you, but like you don't know what the fuck they're going through on the other side of that either. So like I've worked with millionaires, billionaires, celebrities, and yeah, they have the shiny shit on the outside, but like on the inside, there's a whole other ecosystem. And I remember watching like a great example of this is Oprah's interview with Mariah Carey. And like, whoa, that was like so eye-opening because like Oprah asked her at some point, like, are you happy with your life? And she's like, no, I don't think I even know what happiness means. Like, I'm still trying to find it. And she's so successful, you know what I mean? And you're like, holy shit, she's still dealing with depression. She still doesn't know who she is. She's still got trauma she's working through, and it puts things into perspective. And it's not to like use her trauma or anything as like a way to like build yourself up, but it is we tell ourselves stories that like, oh, if we just had the Lambo, my life would be so much better, right? But that's not necessarily going to help you at the end of the day because it's like it's a form of escapism. And like what you were talking about with like having to make the decision, like I'm going to stick to what I believe in. I'm going to embody that frequency on those days where you're being most tested and most tried is mastery. Like if people are looking for like mastery of a specific thing, like you cannot master something until there is tension and you have to think outside of the box and you have to force yourself to stick to that decision. That is full decked out mastery. So yeah, I love how you bring that up because it's so true when you're looking at the rest of it. There was something else I was gonna say. I can't remember what was the other one that I wanted to comment on, but it'll come back to me, I guess.
Well, even the Lambo example that you bring up, right? I think oftentimes we also want to manifest things. We want to, um, you gave the example of the house on the beach, right? We're always thinking of like the object that we want versus the feeling. And I know that that is super important because we talked about this earlier too with the feeling of love, the feeling of bliss. And so I want to kind of circle it back to when you are wanting to quantum jump, you also have to focus on, I think, the feeling, not just the object and the materialistic thing that it is that you're chasing. Because at the end of the day, even if you get that thing from that previous example with the house on the beach, you may find that you're still unhappy. And it's because the core craving was actually the craving of freedom. And that was the thing that you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. So wait. What was the question exactly when it came to that one?
I don't know what the question was. That was just
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, for sure. Like, well, precision. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned focus. I think that's where we were trying to go with it. Yeah, when it comes to focus, I guess people say it's the feeling, but there's so many different ways to get there because you can have like faith. that is going to happen, and that will still get you there. You can have anticipation, that will still get you there. You can have focus. Focus makes it really, really fast. That's pretty much the gist of it. But in order for you to be focused, you have to be focused not only on like how to get there, right? Like goal setting or scheduling or whatever, but you also have to be able to be like really specific with yourself and deliberately looking for the resistance that you have in said in relation with the said manifestation that you want to have. So like that's mostly like where I see it in terms of focus, because focus also is like dedication. Like I've had times where being a shaman, I've had to ask myself if I want to be a shaman. I've been a shaman my entire life. And I've had moments where I'm like, I don't think I want to do this shit anymore. I don't think I can do this anymore. And I sit down and I ask myself, like, you've been creating this manifestation for such a long time. This is something that you know is in your astrological chart. Maybe it's just not the moment right now. Maybe you're going too hard right now. Maybe you need, and that's what I wanted to point out, because you said something about like the retraction, right? Talking about that retraction, right? Like when people move 10 frames forward and then come back, that's a resistance of identity. If we look at identity shifting, you can shift someone and then they return right back. In hypnosis, it happens. In a bunch of different like modalities, it'll happen. And it's because the person wasn't authentic about the creation originally. And then at times when you look at resistance, I sometimes, like the other day, I was thinking to myself, man, I really feel like I could crank out more content. And if I kind of just did things in a specific way, but it just doesn't feel organic for me. And I was beating myself up because I'm like, man, I see some people who could like literally are cranking 10 pieces of content every day. I'm only fucking clipping one. And then I heard the new album from FKA Twigs come out. And when it came out, I was listening to, I'm like, wow, this is such an amazing album. And I remember that she disappeared for a couple years. Like she was in the background, but she wasn't in the music scene. Like you really didn't hear anything about her. And then she comes 4 years later with this monster album that's amazing. And I'm like, oh, a true artist or somebody who's truly like dedicated to their path will recognize when you need to just take a step back and just focus on yourself for a hot minute so that when you come out, everybody's like, oh my God, I'm mind blown. Like, thank you, you disappeared for 4 years. You know what I mean? And a lot of times when we get retracted to an original point, we see it as like a negative, like we did something wrong. But what if we just missed something? Or maybe we came back to that center to take a break. You know, last year for me, it was like that. I was still trying to figure out, I had done shamanism for such a long time, and I remember being in the Andes Mountains. I was doing Hichuma, which is like San Pedro, basically, like the male format of ayahuasca. And it was so intense because that whole trip that I had during those 2 weeks, I kept reliving, like, I've been here before. Like, holy shit, I dreamt about this a year and a half ago. Like, oh my God, like, no way. What is reality? Like, where am I? And it was constant, like, blowing because my soul had decided that it wanted to be in Peru at that time. It got so crazy that like I had to do my bathroom, right? Redo my bathroom. And before I even got invited to go to Peru, I didn't even know this was a thing. I bought tile for my bathroom that was called Machu Picchu, which
No.
is in Peru. Yeah. And it was a stone that I was so obsessed with because it was like for your solar plexus chakra. And like my bathroom has to have this stone in it. And then literally 2 weeks later, one of my friends is like, do you want to go to like Peru with us? We'll end up going to Machu Picchu and stuff like that. So like I've had so many experiences like that. And especially in Peru, it showed me you're exactly where you need to be all the time. It's just whether or not you're willing to accept that you are where you need to be. Like, and it takes a lot of courage to be like, okay, I am this person right now who doesn't feel like they're making as much movement as they would want to. That is self-compassion. That is self-love. That's using the quantum field to actually recognize the divinity of just your cellular anatomy, their place in the cosmos in this moment. And when you are able to do that, that's where more magic kind of comes out and it manifests for you. Because during that trip, the more I surrendered to, I've been here this whole entire time. I've been waiting for myself to catch up that I've been meditating on this mountain or whatever, right? I've been able to surrender a lot of what I think I'm supposed to be doing. Oftentimes, too, we think about like, and it's been, I'm just using examples because these are all my downloads I've been having lately. Like, I wanted to be super recognized for my work and I wanted to do it while I was young. But I'm like, man, the work is constantly getting bigger than me. It's so much more complex than I am. I don't even know if I even have all the pieces yet together. And then I think about Alan Watts, Dolores Cannon, and all like Bashar, all these people who are much older and they are like, they're cultivating their craft. So what's the rush? If I'm actually part of the Dharma of creating quality work, why the fuck do I have to do it in my 30s? Why can't I say like the culmination of my work is when I'm 80? That would be the true understanding of the Dharma and allowing the quantum field to work with me to then be in harmony with myself. Then I don't have anxiety of performance. I'm doing exactly what the universe wants me to do. And you start having like these downloads sometimes, and you're like, maybe it's just me. I'm just losing my mind. Like, I should not be letting go of my dream like this. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then you kind of have to come back and be like, I'm only having these inspirations because the cosmos is instructing me this is the path. And then you have to trust yourself. When you trust yourself, then doors open and it becomes easier all over again. So yeah, that like long roundabout explanation, but those are all personal experiences. And when it comes to like the feelings and the emotions, lately, I've been writing a lot about this, which is funny you bring that up too, because it takes a quarter of a second for you to get triggered. And then suddenly another quarter of a second for your body to start creating the chemicals that will create an emotion.
Right.
6 seconds into those chemicals colliding with each other, you have an emotion. 17 seconds into that emotion, you're now attracting things that are very similar to that. 68 seconds into feeling that, you're now becoming magnetic. You're moving reality energetically to give you more of the same. 90 seconds in, now it's a feeling. Stay even longer into that. Eventually, it'll turn into a mood, then a personality trait, and then part of your identity. And then you start seeing, okay, well, if all these different elements of our feelings, you can stop your feeling in 6 seconds. You get triggered, it's only a 6 second response. It's only a 6 second response. I don't actually feel angry. It's just all these chemicals colliding together to make me feel angry. 6 seconds. Okay, cool. As long as I don't feel this way for 17 seconds, I'm Gucci. I'm fine. I'm perfect. And when you stop yourself within that 17-second mark, you're now the creator of your own reality. And when you start understanding even deeper, like your anatomy, right? Like this happened to me at the beginning of the year. Someone really triggered me. I felt like this deep sense of hate. Like I haven't felt hate in a really long time. And I felt hate towards this individual. And I remember I was doing research on the brain months before, and I had found that hate and love are in the same area of the brain. So then as I'm feeling like the hate surge and all the other negativity, I was like, love is in the same place. Love is in the same place. Wherever you feel in your brain, love is in the same place. You don't have to feel hate. You don't have to feel hate. There's only 6 seconds, bro. Like love, just love. And I just kept like coaching myself, choosing love, even though I was overwhelmed with hate. And then I got to a point where it wasn't love that I felt forgiveness. And I felt forgiveness just simply because I don't want to hold myself ransom to this energy. I don't want to hold you ransom to this energy. This isn't worth it for either one of us.
Mhm.
We at least see the truth of what's happening and we can move forward from here. And then like that was a huge transformative shift. But that right there, that whole choice of switching my anatomy from hate to love was quantum shifting. Like I was doing it in real time. And that was one of the most difficult times I ever had to do it. And that's where people need to be real with themselves. Like you're not going to always do it when you want the most idealistic thing. It's going to test you at different capacities of your consciousness.
Yeah, I think two things out of this that are like sticking out for me. One, like give yourself permission to take the step back or to slow down because it's so natural for all of us that live in this society that is so performance driven that we want to have gotten there yesterday. And it's like, why haven't we? We suck. We're the worst, et cetera, right? We start bringing ourselves down where I felt the same way as you had mentioned, like last year. I think I was like, I don't feel like making videos. They are sucking out my time, my energy. I don't think I should do it. Why? Why am I doing that? And it felt right. And then the other thing that you were just saying, which is like, I love that the quantum jumping or the shifting, right? And I realize that there are all these terms to it. We can do it every day if we really think about it. We are essentially doing it every day with every feeling, every emotion, every moment of awareness where we're actually changing the focus to something else, to the opposite of what we always do or have done in the past. So it's not, I think it's important for people to understand that it is not just this like, I want the house and the car and to be successful and be a multimillionaire in 5 years from now. It is the little baby steps of, if I'm shifting from hate to love, or if I'm switching that perception, I think over time, those little small steps get you to whatever the deeper desire is in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think about like when you said the millionaire thing, because that was something that I was trying to manifest for myself for a while. And I manifested it. I did. But there's a whole vibration that goes into that. Like it was crazy. So I manifested it. I was like, yeah, I did it. Like, oh yeah, my life has changed. A couple months later, I lost half of the portfolio, was no longer in that status. And then I had the depression of having over 600K just disappear from your account out of nowhere. And I was like, I wanted to die. I just didn't want to do anything. And I remember hearing myself from the astral being like, isn't this the game you wanted to play? This is the game. Are you gonna deal with it or not? Like, are you now gonna trump out? Like, you can get out of this game right now because this is what hurts you, really? Then you didn't want to play that badly. And then I had to get my shit together in like 2 days and be like, no, you're right. You're right. I did say I wanted to play this game. I wasn't anticipating this to happen, but obviously, like, I've heard of a bunch of millionaires and billionaires and shit like that that have had a bunch of money, then gone poor, then made that money back. Maybe this is just part of the path for me to figure out how to do this over and over and over again and maybe unlock it in other people's consciousnesses. And those are the moments where you literally have to like trust in the dream, trust in yourself, look at the fact that like what are you actually manifesting? Because it's not always going to be easy. You can have the house, but the house might have a shit ton of taxes. Like, are you willing to absorb the negative of any quality manifestation? Because it doesn't matter if you're going to be in a relationship with a guy that has all the things that you want. He still has inner child trauma. There's still something there that you have to deal with. Like, he's not perfect where he has no interests or desires of his own. He's going to be completely surrendered to you, right? So like you always have to be like really aware, like any manifestation is going to have its drawbacks, and like being a true creator of that is accepting the drawback and working with it when it presents itself. Otherwise, you didn't authentically want that. Tantra tells you about that all the time. There's authentic desires, inauthentic desires. Inauthentic desires lead you to more suffering. Authentic desires lead you to understanding the bliss that is inherently within, that's always been within you and within every creation that you create. Mhm.
Yes, I love that you bring that up, because every ride has its bumps. And I think knowing that even if you get to the place that you want to be, there's going to be challenges and difficulties. So I think that's super important to be aware of. And I think for people that are looking to do some quantum shifting or jumping, that you kind of bring that awareness in early,
Mhm.
because the harder you start to go after something, and then once you get there and then the opposite thing pops up for you, it's so easy to then go down a quick decline, because you're like, I didn't think this is what it was going to be like, or why am I having these troubles, or whatever the case is. So I think that's super important.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
I would love to have listeners just know where they can contact you, how they can learn more, especially through your academy or anything else that you've got going on.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Antojai. And if you want to find me on any social media platform, pretty much Antojai is something, whether it's like Antojai Quantum Reiki, Ascension Academy. You can visit antojai.us if you want to schedule an appointment with me or do any coaching to activate your psychic abilities, master manifestation, quantum bending, all that other stuff. I do independent sessions, but I also do like group teachings every year. So if you're somebody that wants to learn with other shamans and you want to be in a vibe like that, that's always like a good fix. And then yeah, I just released my Quantum Reiki Tarot. So that's something you can definitely dive into it. It's really cool because it is like a spell book. It's a oracle deck, it's a tarot deck, and a hybrid and all in one. So you can use it to heal people. You can use it to be really accurate because traditional tarot has like certain limitations based off of how it's designed. So I took everything that was really awesome about tarot. Then I added some other divination techniques into it, like Vedic astrology, Druidic magic, Taino magic, stuff like that, just to make it much more expansive. Yeah, the deck, I created it because I wanted one deck. I have like a ton of decks behind me and like probably 120 decks or so. And I had gotten so tired of like, I need to bring 4 decks with me if I'm gonna go to like, California or something, just in case somebody asks me a specific question. And I took about like 10 years to create a deck that not only will answer what your soul purpose is, will answer any question that comes up, but it's extremely accurate because it's using so many different modalities in one place. And it's designed to be the one and only deck that you will ever need for the rest of your life. It's the most accurate tarot in the world. So yeah.
I love that. And I've seen some of the designs and it looks so cool. I think the design and the artwork on the deck is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I had a Marvel artist actually channel each card, and it was a really cool experience to be with him because he had never done channeling or anything like that. And I would give him like a spell and be like, okay, this is the deity that you're gonna summon. And when he would draw the pictures, there were things that I had never talked to him about that he would just know. Like the Thoth card, it has the 5th language of Antojai on it. I had never shared any of it with him, and he just like drew it because he was like, oh, this is what Thoth showed me. And I was like mind blown that he was like having like these really crazy experiences. But yeah, the deck itself, a lot of people report that there's a ton of magic that you can feel coming off of it, just because each card was independently channeled for a while with that deity, infusing its knowledge and stuff like that. So yeah, you can find it on Etsy if you just type in Antojai or the Quantum Reiki Tarot deck.
Awesome. And I think the one thing else that I want to say is having been a student of the Antojai Ascension Academy, I loved the experience. I love the program. I love the community that still exists, that I am still a part of. And so I feel very lucky to have gone through it, to have been taught by you, Axel. So yeah, I would highly recommend it for anyone that is interested in kind of diving into not only quantum Reiki or healing or shamanism, but it's just, I think, be ready for expansion on so many levels and kind of also going through your own healing in the process of it. And I know that I've experienced that myself, and I've definitely heard other students that have gone through something similar. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun when we did the work together. I can't wait for the next one when we end up getting into something a little bit more advanced. But yeah, it was really fun, and I can't wait for new students to come through.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Axel.
Thank you for having me. This is super fun. I can't wait to talk again.
Thank you for listening. If you're interested in becoming a client and working with me, visit me at nunatherapy.com or follow me on social media at Nuna Therapy for regular content and inspiration. Until next time.